Hello there, me again. I thought in preparation for the quilt along that I would just talk about a couple of quilts. I just grabbed them quick in no particular order about how I choose quilts, sometimes, not always, but how I choose quilts to do the quilt along. So this one is called Quilters Matter. And I usually find a bigger quilt that I like. That's maybe a little bit more complicated, and make it into a small one that's just doable, something we can just practice something new on. So this one, I really wanted to work with Matter prints. A lot of you don't know what that is, and so I was reading about them the other day. And basically, I thought the best description was just copper. So you think of a copper penny, that's exactly what I think of this. And it's the type of way that they were dyed. So anyway, so I'm not gonna go into details about that. I may do something about Matter in a future video. So anyway, yeah, this one is just called Quilters Matter, and all of these you can do a little search on my blog in the upper left hand corner for the name of the quilt, and you should be able to come up with the patterns for those. So that was that one, and I will just tell you the year briefly because I always put labels on. And 2016 is the year on that one. And I think at first I was doing a spring one and a fall one, and then it just worked out to have, I did the spring swap and then a fall quilt along. So this one is called Pink Lemonade. This was kind of back in the earlier days, 2012. And I just thought the lemons and the pink just reminded me of lemonade. But what I thought was unique with this one that I wanted to try and teach about was how to make half blocks. You don't just make a full block and cut it in half. Well, I mean, you could, and then it would just be your version of a humble quilt. But generally, especially if you're making a bigger quilt, you don't want to just make one block and cut it in half because then you'll have no seam allowance. So anyway, we talked about that. And we also talked about making quarter blocks even. So that was kind of fun to be able to do quarter blocks. And this one I actually quilted and I tied. The original had little ties in it. And I just thought that it was pretty cute. I just put a little pink, I don't know if you can see it, little pink like DMC thread, just tied it at the corners. So that was my inspiration for this one called Pink Lemonade. Here's the back too. I thought the back was pretty snazzy. It's definitely bright. This one is called Mountain Trail, and I did that one in 2012. So this was the fall version of the 2012, and that one was the spring version. So with this one, it's not just a standard log cabin. It's pretty much a log cabin, but it just has a little bit of a different twist in it with the red little trail. So that's what caught my eye with this one. And this one was a bigger quilt, and I just made a smaller version of it for the quilt along and only added 2 borders, which is kind of fun. Not every quilt calls for 4 borders. So the backing's actually really old too, and just reminds me of kind of weird little eyeballs. All right, here is Palmetto Point. And it's kind of a version of Jacob's Ladder. This was done in 2017. And the thing that makes it a little bit different is it actually has the 16 patch. And for me, that is what kind of comes forward in this quilt. So it was just a little bit different than just a straight Jacob's Ladder. And so I thought that was kind of unique for this one. So Palmetto Point, and that is actually the name of a hiking place that I went. I'm always looking for names of quilts that I can use when I'm out in the wild. So here's another one. This is called Strawberry Fields, and this one was done in 2010. So wow, this will be the 10th at least the 10th year of a quilt along. So that's kind of fun. This one, I wanted to do the zigzag setting. And if you have ever been afraid of doing that, it's actually so easy to do. So basically, it looks way more complicated. Basically, that is your row. You put it together in rows, and then this is your next row. So anyway, all this you can find online. All of these you can. So it's called Strawberry Fields, and I did this in spring of 2010. And yeah, the zigzag is kind of a fun one. And you can see where the center one actually has half blocks as well. So that was kind of a fun thing to do. And they're two different, they're not one block cut in half. So anyway, so next week I am planning on having a blog post probably Monday and just showing you the fabrics that I have chosen for my 50 Shades of Brown. So I just want to let you know, you can use anything that you want, but when you see my pictures on Monday, you will know, it seems like every late summer, early fall, everything in my world is just brown. And the hills are brown, the weed is brown, the grass is brown. I mean, everything is just brown. I live in the desert. We get about 10 inches of precipitation a year. And so there's just not a lot of green left. So anyway, that was every year I would just go, oh my word, it's 50 Shades of Brown. So I thought that was a perfect name for a quilt. So I had a more complicated version that I might still use at another later time, but I think it was just going to be too hard for me to try and do it as a quilt along because I've been using paper piece and just making my own patterns. And maybe that'll be like a challenge spring quilt along or something for those that maybe want to try it. That might be 50 Shades of Brown part 2 or something. Anyway, the one that I chose now really is, I think the challenge, if you want to say, is just using browns. I have 3 patches, 3 little 1.5 inch squares of pink and 2 little patches of blue. So just a little bit of pop, and that's how it was in the original. This is our original small quilt that I'm kind of copying. And so I will show you the browns that I have used: light brown, dark brown, medium brown. I think it would be great in green. Maybe your world is green and you could do a bunch of different shades of green, or maybe different shades of white, or it's whatever you want to do. Different shades of blue would be great. But I will show you next week, and I'm probably not going to make a big announcement about it, but I can probably do it here because if anybody wants to break into my house, they're not going to be watching this video. We're going to be on vacation next week, so I'm not going to be around to really answer any questions. I won't have any reception until at the end of the week. So anyway, yeah, that's it. And I did change the quilt behind me. I wanted to let you guys know that the quilt that was behind me, the basket quilt, several of you asked about that. That was in Liberated Baskets, or Liberated Quilt Making by Gwen Marston. So there isn't a specific pattern. I started that in a class and I just made it kind of relatively small. The quilt I have up here now, I should show you the book. So I actually found that in a book, although Jan Paddock reproduces in a pattern, but she just says she reproduced it as from an antique, but it is actually in one of my books that I came across. And I like to bring that on my lectures too when I show it, because it was a crib quilt, and applique quilts for cribs are kind of unusual. So anyway, and I think the original was made back in the 1860s or something. So anyway, so that's that. And I have made the switch pretty much to my fall quilts. So anyway, hey, just wanted to touch bases with you. I'm trying out my new light because it's a little later in the day, and hopefully the lighting is good. And yeah, that's it. So thanks for all your encouragement on these videos. And if you have a specific topic that you want to talk about, drop it in a comment or put it in a comment on the blog, whatever, to say, hey, I'd like to see this, or I'd like to, you know, have you chat about this. That would be great because I'm looking for topics. So, alrighty, have a wonderful weekend. Love y'all. Bye.